Greetings, daring souls, and prepare yourselves for a voyage into the inexplicable. This evening, we're leaving the familiar behind to venture into the dark corners of human experience. We'll probe the enigma of two technicians found lifeless on a remote hillside, their faces concealed by lead masks. We'll recount the audacious escapade of a band of outlaws who vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a legend. And we'll climb the misty scaffolds of a towering skyscraper where a man plummeted into an endless fog of unanswered questions. Among these tales, two are masterful illusions crafted to bewilder and terrify, yet one is a genuine conundrum that has stumped even the most seasoned investigators. Are you equipped to discern the authentic from the fabricated? If you're up for the challenge, click that subscribe button and let's embark on this puzzling journey together. Now let's begin. Story 1. Metal Masks. Imagine a small, sleepy Brazilian town where life moves at its own pace and mysteries are as abundant as the lush green hills surrounding it. It's the kind of place where secrets are whispered through the wind and carried away by the river. But in 1966, a mystery unfolded that was so perplexing, so inexplicable, that it would haunt the town and the world for decades to come. Two men, Carlos and Roberto, were found dead on a secluded hillside. They were dressed in suits and waterproof coats as if prepared for a formal meeting in the middle of a storm. But what caught everyone's attention were the lead masks that covered their eyes and noses, masks designed to protect against radiation. Beside them lay a notebook. Its pages were filled with a series of cryptic instructions. Be at the agreed place at 16:30, take capsules at 18:30. After the effects, protect half of the face with lead masks. Await the agreed signal. Carlos and Roberto were not ordinary men. They were electronic technicians, logical and grounded by nature. They had told their families they were heading out for a business trip, even stopping by a local store to purchase those waterproof coats. What business, what urgent matter could have possibly led them to that desolate hillside? The authorities were baffled. No capsules were found at the scene and autopsies revealed nothing. No toxins in their systems, no signs of struggle, no indications of foul play. It was as if they had lain down on that hillside, pulled their lead masks over their faces and accepted their fate and died. But the story doesn't end there. In the weeks leading up to this bizarre event, locals had reported sightings of unidentified flying objects, strange lights and shapes hovering in the sky, especially around that particular hillside. Were Carlos and Roberto attempting to make contact with extraterrestrial beings? Were the lead masks a form of protection against some otherworldly radiation? Years turned into decades, and the enigma of the metal masks remains unsolved. Theories abound: secret societies, government experiments, even time travel. But every so often, people claim to see odd lights over that hillside, as if some cosmic force is still waiting for someone to decipher the cryptic notebook and complete whatever mission Carlos and Roberto had started. And so the questions linger like a haunting melody. Were these men visionaries, reaching for a truth beyond our understanding? Or were they victims ensnared by their own delusions, or perhaps something far more sinister? We may never know, but one thing is certain. The enigma of the metal masks is a mystery that refuses to die. Story 2. Shadow's Heist. Shadow Thompson wasn't born with that name. He was christened James Thompson, but his ability to move like a shadow earned him his notorious moniker. Raised in a small, impoverished town, he quickly realized that if he wanted to escape a life of mediocrity, he'd have to take matters into his own hands. Shadow was a charismatic leader, drawing to him a motley crew of outcasts, each with their own unique set of skills. There was Quick Draw McGraw, a gunslinger who could shoot a fly off a horse's back, Sarah Sly O'Connor, a master of disguise, and Whispering Will, a man so stealthy he could steal the shoes off your feet without you noticing. For months, the gang pored over maps and train schedules, even managing to get their hands on the blueprints of the train itself. The government treasury train was their golden goose, a heavily fortified moving vault that carried gold bars from the mines to the Federal Reserves. It was said to be impenetrable, guarded by the best men and the most advanced security measures of the time. But Shadow and his gang were undeterred. They chose a moonless night in autumn, when the darkness would be their closest ally. The gang had been preparing for this night like a well-oiled machine. They had scouted the train route meticulously, noting its schedule down to the minute, the number of guards, and the layout of the tracks. On the chosen night, they manually switched the tracks, diverting the train to a dead-end station deep in the forest. The station was overgrown with weeds, a relic of a bygone era, and the perfect place for an ambush. As the train chugged into the station, its headlight cutting through the inky darkness, the gang sprang into action. Wearing masks and dark clothing, they emerged from the shadows like wraiths. Quick Draw McGraw took out the guards in the first car with a swift, silent shot from his customized rifle. Sly O'Connor, dressed as one of the guards, signaled the all-clear, allowing the rest of the gang to board. With military precision, they made their way to the cart carrying the gold. Whispering Will picked the locks that connect the gold cart to the rest of the train, and they began their plan. Within 4 hours of the heist, the police and government agents arrived at the scene. They were met with a baffling riddle. The commandeered train was still there, all of the train carts accounted for except the one carrying the gold. Somehow Shadow and his gang were able to lift the enormous train cart from the tracks. They either found an incredibly creative place to hide the cart from authorities or left with it. However, it all seemed impossible. The surrounding area could not hide a cart that large. Also, there were no trains recorded that night passing through the area other than the government train Shadow attacked. They would have had to travel hundreds of miles before finding a place to hide, and certainly someone would have seen their train. Despite extensive searches, the gold cart was never found. No other trains were recorded on the tracks that fateful night, and no trace of Shadow or his gang was ever discovered. The audacious heist became the stuff of legends, a tale told around campfires and in hushed conversations. Reports of seeing Shadow and his gang popped up all over the country in the following years, yet authorities never found him. They were never tied to another crime again, most likely due to their newfound fortune. Story 3: The Fog's Secret. Dale Thompson was no ordinary man, but rather a pioneer in the burgeoning field of skyscraper construction. In the foggy summer of August 1901, he found himself working on what was to be one of the tallest buildings of its time, Tower 74. With a hammer in hand and a spirit unafraid of heights, Dale was a man who seemed invincible. That is, until the day he vanished into thin air. On that fateful, foggy afternoon, Dale was busy securing beams on the 74th floor. The mist was so thick that it seemed to swallow the lower floors whole, rendering them invisible from his elevated vantage point. Despite the reduced visibility, work had to continue, and Dale was just the man for the job. However, tragedy struck when his safety harness inexplicably failed. Losing his balance, Dale began to plummet toward the ground. His fellow workers watched in horror, their shouts muffled by the dense fog that enveloped the construction site. As Dale descended, everyone braced for the sickening impact that was sure to come. But it never did. Just as Dale seemed about to crash into the earth, he disappeared into the fog and was never seen again. There was no sound of impact, no tremor in the ground, nothing. He had vanished as mysteriously as the fog that surrounded the tower. Emergency crews were summoned and an exhaustive search was conducted. The ground was dug up, witness accounts were collected, and even the fog seemed to be investigated, as if it could offer some clue. But Dale was nowhere to be found. It was as if the fog had opened up and swallowed him whole before sealing itself shut again. The incident became the talk of the town and eventually the nation. How could a man fall from such a height and simply disappear? Theories abounded, from the supernatural to the scientific. Some suggested that Dale had slipped into another dimension, while others believed that the fog was some sort of portal. Skeptics argued that perhaps he had been caught on a lower ledge or beam, but extensive searches yielded no evidence to support this. As years turned into decades, the story of Dale Thompson became a legend, whispered about in the halls of engineering schools and debated in paranormal circles. The Tower 74 building was eventually completed and stood as a monument to both human ingenuity and to one of the most perplexing mysteries of the early 20th century. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Workers in the now historic Tower 74 building sometimes report strange occurrences. tools that move on their own, cold drafts that come from nowhere, and an eerie feeling that they are not alone. Whether these are the lingering effects of Dale's mysterious disappearance or simply the products of overactive imaginations, we may never know. What we do know is that Dale Thompson fell not to his death, but into a mystery that has yet to be solved. And so his story lives on, a chilling tale of a man who vanished into the fog, leaving behind nothing but questions that may never be answered. Thank you for journeying with us through this maze of mysteries and eerie occurrences. You've been patient, you've been curious, and now it's time to lift the veil on the story that's rooted in reality. Was it the perplexing case of two men found dead on a Brazilian hillside, their faces masked in lead? The audacious escapades of a gang of outlaws who pulled off an impossible heist and vanished without a trace? Or the man who plummeted from a skyscraper into a foggy abyss of unanswered questions? Prepare yourselves, because the tale that transcends fiction to touch the realm of the real is metal masks. That's right. The haunting story of Carlos and Roberto, who were discovered lifeless with lead masks and a cryptic notebook, is based on actual events. This unsettling narrative serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most bewildering mysteries are not the ones we conjure, but the ones that truly unfold in the world around us. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the unknown. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that like button and share it with fellow mystery seekers. And remember, in every trio of tales at 2 tricks, 1 treat, 2 will deceive, but 1 always speaks the truth. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and always stay curious.